Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, the podcast where the dogs are the stars of the show. Welcome to episode 77 of the Relaxed Dog Podcast, sponsored by therelaxeddog.com. Thank you very much for finding this show. Welcome back to the regular listeners and a welcome if you are brand new. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. My guest this week is Maxwell Ivey, and he's going to be sharing all about Penny. But first, just want to repeat something I said last week. As we are heading into the Christmas period, please think about what you are going to give your dog. There are some really well marketed and really nicely presented items that are basically dangerous to your dog, and that's the ones in particular with rawhide, amongst other ingredients. Do yourself a big favour, read the ingredients first before you buy something. And don't forget to tell your family not to waste their money buying those items as well. Anyway, on to some doggy news. Now, a 10-year-old Labrador by the name of Zach, along with people from the university in Glasgow and also from Aalto University in Finland, have developed a doggy phone, whereas they have put a device inside a small ball, and when the dog, in this case Zach, vigorously shakes the ball, the home TV makes a video call to the guardian. That will be an interesting item to keep an eye on. Staying in Scotland, police in Bonnybridge attempted to stop a car being driven in an erratic manner. The driver made off on foot and evaded them. So I'm not quite sure if they actually said the line, "Better call Saul," but Saul, their police dog, was deployed, tracked down the driver a short time later, hiding in woodlands in a golf course there. So well done, Saul. Now, it is the season for giving, and wouldn't it be nice if you gave someone the gift of listening to this podcast and hearing how awesome dogs are? It could be a virtual stocking filler, and I would appreciate it very much. Anyway, here's this week's interview. Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast. I am here with Maxwell Ivey. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am going fantastically well. So, whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm about 45 miles north of Houston, Texas.
Oh, nice. And who are we going to talk about today?
Well, I figure we'll talk about Miss Penny, the wonder dog, the dog that was such a big part of our lives around here that 4 years later we still haven't gotten to the point where we can find what it takes to go get another dog yet.
Oh, okay. Well, that's both good and not so good. But I'm going to ask for you to take us back in time to just before you and Penny met up, and tell us about the hows and whys that happened.
Okay. Well, me and my family used to own a small traveling carnival, and we were working in the eastern part of the state of Texas. My nephew was at that age where we thought he should have a dog. And we had gotten him one dog, but the dog turned out to not be suited for traveling. It had a lot of stress and actually ate a hole through the door of our house trailer because it didn't like being outside on a chain underneath the house trailer. And we were asking around for somebody who might have a dog for my nephew. And we ran across a vet who had a dog that she wanted to, she considered a rescue animal. And my mom and my dad said, we want a small dog. We want a dog that can get in and out of a truck, that can be comfortable in a small space. And no one said, this dog is going to be a small dog. So we took the dog. We had a discussion to see what we were going to name it. And for a long time, its name was just Girl Dog or Dog because nobody knew what to call it. And Penny was probably about maybe a foot, 15 inches long. She probably weighed maybe 20, 30 pounds. She was what looked like a reasonable indoor dog when we first got her. Now, my dad always said if you looked at the feet of the dog, we should have all known it was not going to be a little dog. And so when we would travel from one town to the next, the first week we got her, Penny sat on my leg. The second and third week we got her, she had to stretch out onto my lap. By the fourth or fifth or sixth week we had her, she was having to ride in the floorboard or in the back seat because it just wasn't comfortable anymore for her to sit on me, or it wasn't comfortable for her either. I mean, this dog ended up being about 95 pounds, and but she actually took pretty good she actually did pretty good with traveling. Although Penny was really a free spirited, hard as a dog. Couple of things that we found out about Penny very early. One was that you could not feed her or give her water on the day that you traveled to the next town. We did that by mistake the first 2 weeks, and both weeks she threw up all over me. And I had to ride. 1 week it was 60 miles, and another week it was 75 miles with dog vomit on me with no way to clean it off, or in a hot, steamy, no air conditioning truck. It was, but somebody finally figured out not to feed her. The other thing was Penny would get off of her leash or off of her collar, and she would go, but she would always come back. So when we finally decided to give her a name, I said, well, why don't we just call her Penny? She's like a bad penny. Every time we think she's gone, she turns up again. One of the few times in my life I got to name the dog. But, Penny was a really cool dog. She didn't like thunder or fireworks, which, fireworks was bad because just about every weekend there was a fireworks show wherever the carnival was. But she was very mellow. She, really easygoing dog. She was a world-class scrounge. So anytime she wasn't on the leash, if, you turn a dog that, thinks the whole world is a buffet loose on a carnival midway after you close where, literally it is a buffet, you can just imagine. But she was a really cool dog. And the best thing about Penny is a few years after we got her, I had decided I didn't want to travel anymore. I was wanting to come home and go full time, helping other people sell used rides and become an online business person because I just wasn't really happy anymore. My dad had passed away. My games weren't doing as well as I thought they should on my uncle's midway. And so I just wasn't happy. I said, let me just go home. And I honestly think that knowing that Penny was going to be here with me was part of the reason why I was able to win that argument, to where they were like, yeah, we're not going to be comfortable with him being there by himself, but at least he has the dog. And you wouldn't know this about me, but for some reason, my family has kind of a low opinion of my survival skills. So instead of me watching the dog, they figured the dog would watch me.
Nice.
And, yeah. And the cool thing about Penny, one of those, another one of those things I just had to learn about her was she had this knack of, I would be sitting here working on my laptop, trying to edit a page on my website or trying to send an email, and she would come up and go, come on, Max, pet me, scratch me. You know that spot I can't reach? Now get, how did I usually put it? put down that silly laptop and do your real job,
Yeah, that's it.
And so at first it annoyed me because, I was right in the middle of something, but I finally decided to think of it as an opportunity for meditation. And so when she'd show up, I would go, okay, Max, I'm going to take a 10 or 15 minute break. I'm not going to think about nothing. I'm just going to pet the dog and scratch that part on the back of her back, just above her tail, that she can't reach or that she pretends she can't reach. And just try to enjoy the moment. And, while the smell of dog or wet dog is not really a good smell, if you focus on it, you can kind of lose track of where you are and come back to your work a little bit more refreshed. And, sometimes I had some of my best ideas after I was through petting that crazy dog. And I know for a fact that in the 2 or 3 years since she's been gone, that I am nowhere near as productive at my work now that I don't have her interrupting and distracting me.
Ah, nice. And I love the idea, the enforced break. You don't need a program or a watch. You just need a dog to tell you to have a break.
Yeah, we talked about before we came on here about how dogs are great teachers of being in the moment. And so that was kind of what I had to learn from Penny. Max, you're the only human here. So if she needs to be scratched, you're going to scratch her. If she needs to be fed, you're going to feed her. And if she needs to go outside, you're going to have to let her outside. So it was just one of those things. Once I accepted it, it was really, really worked for the best. And, it got me thinking about other things we do. And so, people that do laundry, dishes, vacuuming, there's so many things we do on a daily basis that on the surface are a pain in the butt, are not fun at all. But they're repetitive, mundane, monotonous. And if we think about it right, we can use them as a way to just totally empty our mind. I like to call it modern meditation. Mm-hmm. And, some people, when they swim or run or ride a stationary bike, again, that's time they're not really doing anything with their brain. And I find it some wonderful thinking time. In fact, I had a woman comment on my idea a while back, and she said, Max, you are so right. She said, my problem is, though, I get some of my best ideas when I'm at the pool. What do I do then? So I finally figured it out. I told her, get a whiteboard and a marker and put them beside the pool.
Yeah, nice. I like it.
But yeah, there's so many things, grooming a horse, painting a house. There are so many things we do. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that enter data into a computer, even where they're reading it off of a piece of paper or out of another file. They're putting it into a form where, it's not a totally, mindless job, but there's not a high level of difficulty required. And I'm sure there are lots of things like that we have every day. And I just, I used to have a dog, and I'm looking forward to sometime here in the future when I actually get another dog. I have, my nephew actually had to take Penny to the vet to have her euthanized, and it hit him very hard. So while I've been ready to have another dog, and my mom and my brother have pretty much within a few months, but Seth just isn't ready. But recently, I have gotten him to accept the idea that I might get a guide dog. So at least that has kind of broken the ice a little bit. And I'm currently working with an orientation and mobility instructor because you have to have good cane skills and good transit skills before they will accept you as a candidate to become somebody who uses a guide dog. And that's why I haven't gone ahead and just done it yet. Plus, COVID is making it kind of difficult for new training. The schools are doing a good job maintaining the training of the dogs that are already out in the world and continuing to train the puppies, but they're kind of in a holding pattern when it comes to approving new students and actually training them with their dogs. So that's part of it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to someday having another dog. And of course, the difference between Penny and a guide dog is the guide dog's needs generally have to be fulfilled on a schedule. So as opposed to this random interruption that pretty much seemed to happen whenever I really needed it to happen. With a guide dog, it'll be, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It'll be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Whatever the schedule is, it'll be pretty much that within a few minutes every day, because that's the way they work.
Mm-hmm. So for those people listening that don't know you, with your vision impairment, can you just give us a brief background on what type of impairment and how long you've had that for?
That's a good point. I forgot that this is not being recorded with video, and even if it were, they can't see my cane. So we probably should have covered that sooner. But yes, I am almost totally blind. I have what they call light perception. I've been this particular level of vision since I graduated from college in '90, so roughly 30 years or more. I was born with perfect vision. I also was born with retinitis pigmentosa, or RP. I had a gradual decrease in vision at first, and then when I went into junior high school, I had a big drop off in vision. It's pretty common for men with RP to have a big vision downturn when they go through puberty. It stayed pretty much constant until I graduated from high school. But by the time I graduated from college, it was down pretty close to what it is now. And so but yeah, we might have wanted to talk about that sooner.
That's fine.
So that's one of the things I like about both of our styles when it comes to our podcast is we are not the kind of people who edit much or script much. We're really just wanting to have a good conversation and try to stay on the topic, so.
Absolutely. And I suppose that has a fair bit to do of your perception of Penny, even from the early days.
It's funny, something that just occurred to me. For the longest time, I didn't know that Penny was a white dog. It wasn't until I asked somebody, I think it was a mail lady, called me on the phone. She was trying to deliver a letter or a package or something. She said, "Is this big white dog out here in your yard? Is it friendly?" And dude, I have a friend in Pennsylvania who refuses to own a dog that isn't black because they get snow up there, and she has some vision, but she feels like she wants to be able to see her dog when the yard's covered in snow.
That's understandable. and don't worry, I think there's a lot of people with no vision impairment that want the same sort of thing.
Yeah, but Penny was an unusual dog when it came to people and other animals. I don't know if I told you about this or not, but we came home one morning, and my brother had pictures of this on his last phone, but when he transferred over to the new company, we lost the pictures. But and the phone was already kind of partially broke when he took it. So instead of getting video, he got a slideshow. But we came home one day, and Miss Penny and a young deer are out in the yard playing tag. And my brother described it. He said, it's like this. He said, one of them will stalk the other one, and then they'll jump up and tag them or slap them with their paw. And then it'll be the other one's turn to stalk them. So our dog and a young deer were out in the yard playing tag.
That would have been a beautiful video.
Oh, yeah. The dog would have made me famous, which that's one of probably hundreds of times the dog would have made me famous if we had just put up cameras in the house.
So just want to go back for a little time to Penny's early days, particularly sort of like in her puppyhood and that traveling around. Can you tell us a little bit how life was how you think life was for her then?
I think that it was, I think it was different depending on, when, because when she was a small dog, she spent most of her time in the house or in the truck. So that probably made things more like being a dog pretty much anywhere else. But when she got to be bigger and spent more time outside, then I imagine it changed. Penny, like I said, we called her Penny because it's kind of like being a bad penny. I was sitting with her in a pickup one day when it was raining, and we were waiting, hoping the rain would clear so we could get open. And she jumped through the driver's side window of the truck and disappeared for a couple hours. And then a little while later, she comes and she jumps back through the driver's side window of the truck. if when she would get loose while we were open, she'd go down to wherever the rides were, and she would run around and play with the customers. And once she got off the leash, she did not want to go back on the leash until somebody made her. And I remember one day the girl my brother was dating at the time had caught Penny and was trying to drag Penny back to our house trailer. And I said, what would be easier would knowing that Penny didn't want to go. I said, what would be easier would be if you just let me hang on to her here and go get her leash and bring the leash and then drag her back. And that's what we ended up doing. But she was a very curious dog. She would get into stuff. She would go hang out with people. She was a big lover of anything with cheese in it. And one week up in Kansas, she got loose, and the help found her in the potato chip aisle of the local convenience store. Yeah. They said you could see it in her eyes. She was sitting there in the aisle, walking back and forth, trying to think, how the heck do I get one of these bags open? And the woman that ran the store was just about to call the cops on Penny, but the help from the carnival that was there, getting drinks or whatever during a slow time, they saw her and rescued her and brought her back. But I mean, it was just her thing. If there was cheese, she felt like she should get some. I like to tell people that we would have more pictures of Penny, but how when you take a picture, you say cheese. Well, if you said cheese, Penny felt somebody better have some dang cheese. And if they don't have some, they should go get some,
So you mentioned earlier she jumped out of the truck window into the rain. Obviously, the weather didn't worry her too much.
Yeah, it was funny about that dog. Sometimes she was happy being out in the rain. Usually she was not a water dog. We never really figured out what she was, but my brother and nephew went online and looked at, lots of different dog breeds. And they said if you looked at her build and her fur, she was probably half Greyhound and half Dalmatian. And so I said, okay, good. We'll just tell everybody she's a Greymation. She didn't... But like I said, she was weird when it came to water. Sometimes she would be outside playing in it, and other times she wouldn't want to go outside to go to the bathroom in it. And most of the time, you had to fight her to give her a bath. But every so often, she'd walk into the bathroom and sit down in the tub and go, okay, somebody bathe me.
Okay. Just whatever the mood was at the time.
It was weird. Yeah, it was weird. Most of the times, it'd take three of us to get her into the bathroom. But every so often, they'd walk into the bathroom, she'd be sitting there in the tub. So I guess every so often it just got so stinky, even she couldn't take herself anymore. Is all I can figure.
Did you have a particular favorite area of the carnival?
Anything, yeah. The back door of anything that sold food. Anywhere they had kids. Generally, she stayed away from the noisier rides and attractions, and we did our best to keep her on the leash or in the house when we were open at events that were busy. If we were at an event where people weren't showing up and, we were all just trying to kill time, then just like your idea of the dog at the hospital, we had the dog on the midway sometimes just to keep us from going nuts. Mm-hmm. But usually if it was a crowded midway, we would make sure she was off the midway. Here at the house, we live on the end of a dead end road. And she basically ran the entire cul-de-sac area. And sometimes we would find her 3 or 4 streets up at the convenience store, local gas station where people, would stop and fill up before they head out to work. And more than once, my mom or my brother would stop a mile or two away from the house and yell at her to get in the truck and bring her back home. I mean, but our neighbors all knew her. when we told people that she had passed away and that it was because somebody had drained transmission fluid into their yard, everybody was like, it had to be accident. Nobody would do that dog harm on purpose. But that's the disadvantage of living in unincorporated county. It's near the city, but it's kind of rural to the point where people feel like they can do whatever they want to in their own yard. Mm-hmm. And the Texan thing kind of figures in there too. You know, the whole the state where people pretty much make up their own rules kind of approach to life. So we had her like 11 years. We really, really enjoyed having her. Like I say, there's a hole still left in this family from that dog. And she had a really great dog to follow. We had a poodle terrier named Samantha before Penny that we had for probably 12 or 13 years. That was an amazing dog before Penny. So, you know, it'd be kind of like being in a family that had Michael Jordan and then also had LeBron James. You know, it was two amazing pups.
Sounds it. So with the carnival, were there any other animals, or did any of the other people that were on the tour have pets with them?
My dad tended to discourage other people from having dogs. He felt like if you had too many dogs, it gave the wrong impression, and the more dogs you had, the more likely you were to get into trouble, because he's like, I know I'll take care of my dog, but I don't know that the people I employ will take care of their dog. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of discouraged it. Usually people that worked for us or that were booked with us, where they would bring their games or rides to an event we were at, generally didn't have a lot of animals. I was kind of impressed. For about a year and a half, we had a petting zoo. So for a year and a half, we had miniature goats and miniature sheep, ducks and pigs and stuff. And Penny behaved herself real well around the animals. And one day when they got loose from the trailer we were hauling them in, and they were kind of spread out across a 2-lane back road in southeast Houston, Penny helped us get them back in the trailer, even though I don't think she'd ever done any herding before.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. What about going for walks and things like that and exercise? Did she have like particular areas that she preferred, or how did you do that when you were on the road?
Well, when we were on the road, then you had to have somebody walk her. So usually Seth or Patrick would, or sometimes to help, just take her and start, walking the midway, walking the independent midway, which is where the food booths and the vendors that sell, homemade crafts and stuff like that. Just, walking enough so that she doesn't go crazy being stuck inside or tied to the side of the house trailer for long periods of time. But Penny, like I said, she'd get loose. Somebody'd have to go catch her after a while and take her home.
One of the questions.
She was actually, the more I think about it, the more I think she was not a very good carny dog.
And that's from your point of view. I think from her point of view, it was great.
Yeah. She probably felt like, I'm really working hard here to get along with these crazy people. I'm doing a good job considering that I was not raised for this life.
A question I ask all my guests, and this could be an interesting one, is to complete the sentence, I can't believe my dog ate.
We don't have any of those where the dog ate a sock or a shoe or whatever, but we do have a really good story of something she did that I bet no other dog owners ever told you. We came home one day, and my mom, Penny loved to do anything to show my mom she liked her, because my mom put the food in the bowl. So more often than not, my mom would feed her the scraps and pet her and talk to her. So she wanted to make my mom happy with her. So we came home one day, and there was a basket with a big ivy plant in it, and it still had the price tag on it. Penny had grabbed this basket of ivy out of somebody's yard and brought it home to my mom. And since we couldn't give it back, we brought it into the house. And, like years later, that thing is still growing. And even after the bad freeze we had last year, because we lost power, there was freezing temperatures in parts of our house. Part of that ivy died, but some of it came back. And this is a plant that, it's a connection to Miss Penny because, we just came home one day and there it was. But she was a big time thief. We would find kids' toys and people's tools. And once or twice we found bags of tamales that we figured she stole from a neighbor's backyard party or something.
Wow, interesting. So did she have any favorite toys and things that she used to play with or like to gather?
Well, Penny liked to, I think Penny's favorite thing was to play with wildlife. More than once we had to pull her off of a possum. She would spend long periods of time barking at squirrels and birds in the trees. And one of my favorite memories of her was we were out in the yard one day and she's standing out there underneath the tree barking at this squirrel. And she's barking and barking. And finally she gets tired and she says, I don't want to stand here no more, but I don't want that squirrel to think he beat me. So she rolled over on her back where she could still look up at the squirrel and kept barking at him. She would play with stuff in the yard. That was Penny, She never really had toys, but when you travel a lot like we did the first few years of her life, you generally don't accumulate a lot of stuff because stuff turns up missing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she was kind of like, an old school kid that played with wildlife and played with sticks and rocks, whatever,
Oh, cool. How do you think she went? Did she had a favorite season? Did the weather conditions vary much, or did you only tour in like certain sort of like seasons?
Well, we toured about 10 and a half months out of the year. And here in Houston, we don't really get a winter, but we do get some cold temperatures some of the time. I mentioned the freeze we had last year where it was in the 20s and the teens. It was very bad here. My remembering is that Penny preferred the cooler weather. She did not like the heat in the summer, and more than once she pushed one of us out of the way so she could get closer to the air conditioning. Excuse me, I'm the one with the fur. Move over.
Generally, health-wise, how was she?
She was very healthy. And the whole time that we had her, she had one incident with a skin tag. She never, like I said, swallowed anything she wasn't supposed to. That wasn't healthy. It may not have been healthy, but at least wasn't dangerous for her. She was very, very open-minded when it came to dog food. I mean, it was like the only time we ever tried to feed her something she wouldn't eat was when we tried to feed her the really expensive dry. For some reason, she had no interest in it. We had to throw that stuff away. Mm-hmm. And whenever we would take her to be groomed, you put her on the leash, you take her to the PetSmart or whatever, where the groomer was, and they would do her nails and she would be polite and mild and everything. We try to do her nails at home. It takes 4 of us and 2 of us are going to end up with claw marks on us. It's just something about, okay, I'm out in public, I'm a nice dog. I better behave kind of a thing is all I could figure. But, yeah, very healthy over the course of her life. Never had any, torn paws or injured, limbs or anything. Very lucky considering that, like I said, she liked to run the neighborhood when we were home and she liked to run the midway when we were not. So very surprising now that I think about it. She didn't get injured more often or wasn't sick more often. And, just recently with being a Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S., my brother was describing some videos to me of things people are saying you shouldn't feed our dog. And it was like everything on the list is stuff we shouldn't have been feeding our dog. I mean, it says you're not supposed to feed them bread. And whenever we had pizza, Miss Penny would take care of all the crust. It's like, and we used to have a rule that if she wanted to get a treat, she had to high five you.
Mm-hmm.
And my nephew taught it to her, and she stuck with it to most of her life. She would do the high five. One day we were having sausages, and my brother was taking a plate of them across the room. He was going to have some, and he was going to give some to my mom. And Penny went sprinting across the living room with one of her paws up in the air. She was running on 3 legs. She's like, I'm here. I'm here. Now, where's my hot dog?
I was just going to ask, that's an interesting sort of habit. Did she have any other sort of unique sort of Penny things?
Yeah, she was OCD. Whenever you would let her go outside, she had to rub her entire body along the right-hand side of the door going out. It was just one of those things she had to do. If I'm trying to think what else there was that was unusual to her. She thought that I was the only person who could open the door for her. So if she wanted to go out early in the morning or late at night, which she often did, I would be like, there's 3 other people in the house, dog. Go get one of them to open the magic door for you. But it was as if I was the only. And when we did have loud noises like thunder or gunshots or fireworks, I was the designated dog hugger.
That was, I would say, an enviable job, I think.
Yeah. And I just remember one other thing that was really weird about her. She would not share a bed. And there have been nights over the years when it's been cold. It would have been nice to have the dog. But she just did not want to share. But one thing I realized really late in her life was it wasn't that she didn't want to be on the bed. She didn't want to be on the bed in a position where she was behind you. It was like she wanted to be able to escape at any moment. And we often thought that whoever she had been rescued from had probably abused her, because she did have some weird, things that made you feel like she was used to running from people. And one of the things she did that was really weird for dogs, at least we always thought so, is she would not go to the bathroom on a trip until she could be sure that you were at your final destination. And we used to drive to Florida and back from Houston, which is about a 700-mile trip. And she would get in the pickup in Houston, and she would not go to the bathroom until she got to Lake City, Florida.
Wow. And
we would take her outside. We would take her to grassy areas. We would encourage her and tell her please. And it was like, no, not until we get where we're going. But when you got where you're going, you better get the heck out of her way, because you know how it is when you've been holding it a while.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to why we think she may have been abused, and a lot of people don't know how to handle a dog, especially a puppy, when they're having trouble with the issues of going in the house.
Just going back to, again, when she was a pup and the sleeping. So was she inside most of the time?
I would say most of the time. Penny was kind of a nocturnal dog, so that whenever she could manage it, she would rather be outside at night. But yeah, she would sleep in the house, generally find a place on the floor. Before we moved into the last trailer that we had, we were in a rather small trailer, so I was also sleeping on the floor. So I guess for a while, me and Penny shared a bed.
Nice.
But yeah, she would curl up like any dog, and I don't recall her ever having nightmares or running around at night or disturbing anybody. She was a real well-behaved dog. But yeah, she would usually sleep inside, even if while we were open, we would have her outside.
Do you think that was much change when the I suppose the touring stopped, and then you went back and you stayed in the house. And was there much change in her habits or demeanor, do you think?
I don't think Penny changed much. I think it's kind of like an athlete that's pretty much the same player, whether they're playing on turf or grass or asphalt. I mean, Penny, she was still a very free-spirited dog, as much as she could be, whether we were at home or traveling. She never really did become one of those dogs that was happy being on a leash, or it's like she wanted to run free and be loose, to be her own dog as much as possible. But at the same time, she was a very loving dog. She enjoyed being petted and scratched, and hanging out with the family. So it was. I don't think Penny changed. She just adjusted to whatever situation came along, which is one of the things that made her a really good dog, even if, like I say, she probably wasn't the greatest. It probably wasn't built right to be a carny dog, but then most people aren't. My dad used to say that the carnival world is the only industry going where insanity is not a disqualification, but is actually a prerequisite.
And does that sort of, by definition, then link in Penny to that?
Well, Penny was a crazy mutt. Yeah, or as I used to tell people, she's crazy, but she's not dangerous. She will not claw, scratch, or bite you, but she is nuts, or was.
Were there ever any times when you were like genuinely worried when either she wasn't there or that something happened?
Until we figured out her pattern, yeah, there was a couple of times. For some reason, whenever the family would leave and I would be here by myself for a while, the first 2 days that they were gone, she would go and just stay gone. And no matter how much you yelled for her or banged on the house door for her or banged on her dish for her, she just wouldn't come. And the first couple of times it happened, I was very worried and actually asked a couple of my relatives if they were going to be anywhere nearby, if they could go look for her. And a couple of times when people came by the house, I asked them if they would go look for her. But once we figured out that was just something she had to do, then it didn't scare me as much.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever find out where she used to go for those extended stays?
No. We used to talk about getting one of those locators or one of those cameras for her, but we always figured it might end up being used against us in court.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything to that.
Well, that's how we figured it. I mean, as far as we know, Penny never did any damage to anybody's property. But, unless you count trespassing, because I'm not exactly sure she understood the difference between their property and our property, Mm-hmm. But yeah, we never really found out where she went. We figure she went somewhere around here. Our house backs up to a state forest, so there's a lot of unoccupied territory there with trees and, deer and other animals. So who knows where she went? We never figured it out. But like I say, it was after we did figure out that was just something she had to do, then you still worried, but you didn't worry as much.
Mm-hmm. So when she was staying with you and in the later sort of stages, did she develop any other doggy friends and things?
Did she develop any doggy?
Yeah, did she get any local doggy friends that she used to hang around with?
I'm trying to think. Any dog friends? Yeah, there was 2 dogs from a few houses up the road that she played with for a while, but then the owners sold their house and moved off. She was really good with other dogs whenever they were around, whether they be puppies or grown dogs. But we live on it's probably 1.5 miles or 2 miles to where you would start seeing houses next to each other, like you would associate in most neighborhoods. We live on a 2-lane road that is only partially surfaced with asphalt. Most of it's gravel and dirt. and we're at the end of it. And then, like I say, our house backs up to a state forest. So up and down our road, there aren't a lot of houses, and some of those houses were businesses rather than homes. So it wasn't like she had a lot of people with dogs to choose from.
When you, in the last sort of like couple of years, did you take her on any sort of holidays or trips?
Yeah, we took her to Florida with us a few times. We took her to South Carolina with us once, and she's a good dog in on a trip. We did have a problem when we visited my brother in Florida, because he had a little 5-pound Chihuahua that didn't like Penny being in her house, and so we had to keep them in different rooms, because whenever they ended up in the same room together, the little Chihuahua would try to attack Penny, and she would bark and growl and jump and claw, and Penny would just stand there and look at her and go, okay, if you need a play toy, if you need a jungle gym, if you need a fun center, I'm trying to think of the Australian equivalent to the McDonald's playgrounds. If you needed something to climb on and jump off of, fine. It ain't going to bother me one bit, But yeah, it was. She was a good dog on a trip, and whenever we were going to places for fun without having our equipment with us, she would ride in the car, and she'd be a good distraction. You had a dog to pet, which helped with traffic and stuff.
Mm-hmm. If I asked you off the top of your head to one of the happiest moments in time that you spent with her, what comes to mind?
Happiest moments. There were so many times with that dog. It was there. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say there are probably thousands of moments with that dog that I remember. But I can't really think of one specific one. I mean, she was always doing something to distract us or amuse us or entertain us. One of my last memories of her was my brother and mom were going to the store in our 4-door pickup, and my mom saw Penny in the yard and asked Penny if she wanted to ride with them, because they would sometimes let Penny ride to the store with them. And my mom goes to open the back door of the pickup, and Penny decided that she was just going to call shotgun. So Penny jumped in the front seat, and my mom had to ride in the back seat of the pickup, because it's hard to move a 95-pound dog if they don't want to be moved. and my brother's like, okay, this was bad enough. He said, but then as we're going out our driveway, he said, Penny lays down. He said, so now it's like I'm driving Miss Daisy.
So I'm guessing that was her spot in the back seat.
That was her spot in the front seat. Yeah, she did not feel like she belonged in the back seat. No, it's like, no, I belong in the front of the truck, y'all. I've got this really good picture we took of me and her sitting on my bed. It was taken just a little while before she passed, and it's a good memory. But I mean, it was just she was just a great dog. She provided a lot of comfort, a lot of support around here. And whether we were traveling or at home, there's always been a lot more stress than you would probably want. So she was a good dog for us at both times, which is kind of remarkable if you think about it, that you have a dog that was able to handle being in a carnival environment and traveling every week for 50 weeks out of the year, and then just is able to be at home in, extended suburban Houston, Texas.
They're very unique, and they're just awesome. And I think what they do for us and the different conditions, they just adapt, and there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, they have there's so many attributes that our dogs have that we can only aspire to. Being mindful, being in the moment, enjoying the simple pleasures of life, adapting to life when it changes, regardless of how difficult the change may be. Our dogs have a lot to teach us, and they set a really good example in so many areas.
Maxwell, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you and hearing about Penny, a truly awesome dog.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed our time together, and I look forward to getting to hear more of your conversations and learn more about other people's dogs.
Thank you very much again. Take care.
All right, you too.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thank you to the new listeners in Marshall in the USA and in Graz in Austria. Hope you are enjoying it. As always, if you'd like to leave a review on whatever platform you are listening to this on, it will be appreciated. But even better, hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend. I hope you've got all your Christmas shopping done. Until next week, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.